Owen is sandwiched between Messi and R9. Can we take that in? Welcome back to FTBL Culture. It's your boy CultureCams. Today is an interesting one. Have you ever looked back and thought about your favorite player and thought, you know what? What if he had done this? What if he had made this shot? What if he didn't get injured? Today, I'm gonna go through my favorite 3 what if moments. But first, make sure you turn your notifications on, like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss any of this amazing content. Let's get into it. First, let me take you back to the 90s. Think about all the great strikers in the 90s. Shearer, Sheringham, Andy Cole, Robbie Fowler. But if I told you there was a player who won the Golden Boot twice, back to back as a teenager, what would you say? Well, there was that player, and that was Michael Owen, the phenomenon. I don't even want to steal what they call R9, but this is really the English phenomenon. He burst onto this scene like no other teenager has in English history. The way he was mature in his game, the speed, the finishing, just the know-how on the pitch. I don't think we've ever seen anything like it. And I know Wayne Rooney burst onto the scene at 16. And some of you might say, hey, what about Rooney? Well, we're gonna get into Wayne Rooney a little bit later. But Michael Owen was the definition of a wonder kid. You know, you always get that name thrown, you always get that thrown about. Wonder kid this, wonder kid that, Bojan, and all these random players that get called wonder kids. But this was the definition of a wonder kid. And I'm gonna just talk you through it. Michael Owen, at the age of 19, already had 2 golden boots. I mean, actually sit back and think about that. Imagine a teenager now. Imagine a teenager, or a Saka, or Foden, or all these guys that we see now, winning the golden boot back-to-back seasons. Like, we will be calling this player generational, we'll call them world-class elite, they should do all of this. That was Michael Owen. And I know, you know, Love Island came and now everyone just remembers him as Gemma's dad. Once upon a time, he was really out here. He's got 150 Premier League goals despite so many injuries. And I want to talk about these injuries. From the 97, 98, Owen started getting some hamstring injuries on both his legs. And Jamie Carragher is one that speaks very often about this, that no matter what he went on to do, and we're gonna get into what he went on to do, it just still wasn't that explosive, electric Michael Owen. It just wasn't. And it's scary to think what he went on to do despite having these injuries. But from there, he started having reoccurring injuries, and slowly it started to take a toll on his game. I mean, crazy when you're talking about a future Ballon d'Or winner. But again, we're talking about a generational talent. I mean, he won the Ballon d'Or at 22 years old, second to R9. I mean, look at the company he keeps. R9, number 1, first, the youngest. Michael Owen, number 2. Lionel Messi, number 3. Owen is sandwiched between Messi and R9. Can we take that in? This is the type of player that we had on our hands and England had on their hands. But as I mentioned, injuries started to take a toll. And we really and truly, despite talking about a Ballon d'Or winner, youngest to 100 goals, 150 Premier League goals, 118 goals in 216 games for Liverpool, we are talking about an unfulfilled career. 40 goals in 89 games for England, and we are talking about an unfulfilled career. Just imagine how good Michael Owen could have been if those injuries didn't hit him. I'll just finish talking about one absolute wonder kid in Michael Owen. But there was another wonder kid that came straight after him. And he goes by the name of Wayne Rooney. We remember the amazing commentary. Remember the name Wayne Rooney. And I don't think any of us will ever forget that name. But you guys might be thinking right now, Rooney? Well, why are you talking about Rooney? Like, he had a great career. I mean, he's one of the GOATs of the Premier League. Why are you talking about injuries? But I want to talk about his international career. Rooney is often criticised for his international career. You know, people talk about he's only got one World Cup goal. He never really turned up in the moments like maybe an Alan Shearer, maybe a Michael Owen, maybe a Harry Kane. So maybe we can't put him in that upper echelon of English strikers. You know, he always gets these allegations, which I think is totally harsh. And I'm actually here to debunk that. Because if we're talking about injuries, let's go through Rooney's international career and his injuries. In 2004, when he burst onto the scene, 4 goals at the Euros, I thought it was coming home. I mean, listen, I thought it was coming home. I was ready. This is Wayne Rooney, the silver Euro ball. I thought it was coming. We are talking about something that just came and tore the tournament up. Fearless. But what happened against Portugal in the quarterfinals? Injured. Foot injury, he went down, and as soon as he went down, England might as well have said goodbye to that tournament because the momentum left. This is the boy wonder, the sensation, 18-year-old Rooney. Go and do your research if you don't know who I'm talking about. And from that moment, it just never was quite the same for Rooney on the international stage. That was his best tournament, and he was 18. His best tournament came as a teenager. It's such a sad situation. Let's move on to 2006. Manchester United v Chelsea, one of the last games of the season. Paulo Ferreira steps up, boom, injures Wayne Rooney. And that's the first time, me personally, I ever even heard about what a metatarsal was, because from there I just started hearing it all the time. But Rooney, metatarsal injury, broken his 5th metatarsal. We all remember that picture with him in the protective boot. Our hearts dropped. Again, this is England's hero. This is England's saviour, injured going into the World Cup 2006. And he admits himself, he shouldn't have went. Him going to the World Cup, in a way, you can kind of say maybe held England back a little bit, because I don't think any of the performances in the 2006 World Cup were convincing. But again, what happens? England meet their nemesis, Portugal. Wayne Rooney, unfit, he's a bit even looking a bit chubby. He's not at his best. He's not in his peak moments. Through his own frustration with his performance, lashes out, stamps on Carvalho, red card, off you go, Wayne Rooney. And then we know what that started with the wink gate, and the rest is history. Let me tell you that, as a Man United fan, the rest is history. But again, that's 2006. Rooney goes into the tournament injured, and England bounce out of the tournament. Now, fast forward to 2008. You're probably thinking, oh, what, England didn't make the tournament? Yeah, I know. England didn't make the tournament because in 2008, for the qualifier, England versus Croatia, what goes and happens? Wayne Rooney, again, misses the qualifier decider through injury. And again, what happens? England lose the game and don't make it to the Euro 2008. The Wally and the Brolly was created. I know Steve McLaren wants us to forget that, but we never will. England didn't make Euro 2008. And that was one of the all-timer tournaments as well, you know. Like, that really affects me, but maybe it was all-timer because England weren't involved, who knows. But moving on again, that's 2008, 2010. World Cup comes along. Wayne Rooney is having the season of his career, and in my opinion, 09-010 Rooney is one of the best players I've ever laid my eyes on. He was absolutely devastating, absolutely unbelievable. Bayern first leg, Champions League, at the Allianz. Wayne Rooney in the last few minutes goes and injures his ankle, and from there, he should have been out. He should have been injured for 2 months, admittedly, but he forced himself again in typical Wayne Rooney fashion, playing on through injuries. He played the second leg against Bayern Munich. He was non-existent. Goes into the World Cup again, injured. England crash out in the group stages. He shouts at the camera, you know, yeah, that's lovely. Thanks for booing us. It feels so nice. So whatever he said, shouts at the camera. Disaster for England. Capello as England manager. Listen, I don't even know why that ever happened, but it was an absolute howler again. But again, Wayne Rooney walked into a tournament injured. Now you guys must think, listen, I'm making excuses for him. I'm not making excuses for him. In 2014, he went into the tournament again with a chipped bone in his toe. But again, this is another moment where I just say, injuries robbed us from greatness. We never really truly got to see Wayne Rooney in a tournament other than the Euro 2004 excel, go into a tournament fit as one of the best players in the world to go and deliver. And it is a grave shame that that never happened. And some of you might be thinking, well, he's still England's all-time top goal scorer. But hey, goals against Kazakhstan and San Marino ain't gonna cut it, man. Like, it just never quite felt the same. And lastly, I'm gonna go with a bit of a random one. I just gave you two huge names, Wayne Rooney and Michael Owen, you know, two of the biggest names in English football. But I'm gonna go with one that we all remember the injury. We all remember what happened. But do we actually know about the consequences of that injury? And I'm talking about Eduardo for Arsenal. But let me set the scene for you. 2007-2008, Arsenal were going through what we will call a transition period. King Titty, Thierry Henry, the captain, had just left that summer. And Arsenal were ready to go into a new cycle with younger players. I mean, the average age of the starting 11 was 21 years old. Only Wenger could do that. But there was a player that came through that nobody really knew, and that was Eduardo. And listen, I'm gonna be honest, because listen, I tell the truth on this show, right? I do think it's a little bit overstated. He had scored 4 goals up to that point, but he was still a key player in the Arsenal setup. They had a team of Fabregas, Adebayor, Haleb, Flamini, which you look at those names other than Fabregas, you might be like, they're not that great players. But when you mix that in with Wenger ball, we all know about Wenger ball. Popping football, exciting, you want to watch it. Arsenal went from a rebuild team to full-blown title contenders. Now let's fast forward to February. Arsenal were 5 points clear of Manchester United at the top of the table. They rock up to St Andrews, Birmingham. We all know what happened after that. Eduardo and Taylor, 50-50, boom, leg break. Eduardo had the worst injury you could probably wish for on a footballer. I mean, you just don't want to see them type of things. It is shattering, you know? You just don't want to see that. It's hard to watch. However, the moments that occurred after that were arguably bigger than the injury. Let's fast forward again. Gallas, at the end of the game, Arsenal draw the game 2-2. Please, you know what I want you to put up there, production. Gallas on the middle of the pitch sat and cried. He literally cried. Now, I don't know if the tears were for Eduardo or if the tears were because he was gutted that Arsenal conceded a last-minute penalty and lost and drew that game. But he was on the pitch crying and had to be consoled by Arsene Wenger and picked up. And when you have a player like that, the impact of Gallas, the leader, sitting there crying on the pitch after Eduardo had just broken his leg, and then you've got Wenger, who goes into the press conference and accuses Taylor of assault and also says he should be banned for life. Now, in that moment, I gotta be a little bit critical to Arsene Wenger. I think you gotta keep a cool head in them moments. Don't let your team see you've cracked. Gallas has already set a poor example. You don't want to do the same. And I think in that moment, Wenger cracked just a little bit. Because from there, Arsenal drew 4 games in a row. 4. Then they went on to win only 1 in their next 7. It was a massive bottle job, can you say? But Arsenal fans will say it all stemmed from the Eduardo injury. And in a way, it's believable because Arsenal were flying. And for the collapse to just happen straight after the Eduardo injury, it can't be a coincidence. But like I said earlier, let's not overstate how good Eduardo was. I mean, he was a good player. I mean, we're not talking like he was Wayne Rooney or Cristiano Ronaldo or Carlos Tevez, but he was a good player. But ultimately, I do believe that was the catalyst for United to catch up and then go on to have arguably their greatest ever season. So Arsenal fans, I'm sorry, but I had to include Eduardo's injury in this what if moments. I mean, what if? And that was my 3 what if moments. Guys, let us know in the comments what your favorite what if moments, and maybe we'll cover it in the next video. Drop a like, share, and subscribe. Turn the notifications on so you can keep up to date with this amazing content. I'm CultureCams, and I'm out.